Good morning, Wayne.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. I saw that, and I may want to make a couple, maybe suggest a couple of little tweaks on it if we're going to be doing something with it.
The privilege.
On the privilege thing.
I forwarded everything to what your comments to everybody.
Yeah, did he give any?
Pardon me?
Did they give any comments?
No, it was just this. It was just maybe 40 minutes ago.
Oh, okay. I mean, we can, because of the more restrictive wording on what we already have, with the exception of that putting it into the foundation,
Mhm.
you know, in 6 months. The real truth is you can, you know, in these projects, if you go by the time frame, you could be starting when they get the sewer permit, and they could be 2 months or 3 months in conservation, or now this you know, the putting the water back into the ground and anything like that. So you know, the restrictiveness of the 60 days, there should be circumstances where someone would do it without.
Well, the 60 days is just for the payment.
6 months. Let's see, what did I do? I suggested
Extension.
to be paid in total within 90 days rather than the 60 days, because I thought 60 that has to do with finances. You know, have you closed on the, you need the building permit to get the construction loan. You know, if the construction loan may be where you want to get the funding to pay for the permits. You know, so anyway, 60 to 90 days. But anyway.
And then maybe we can put like in the red line. That's the only thing that I had changed. I just added that. Maybe do or extension filed prior to it expiring or something, like you had mentioned. But just
Well, what I was doing was I put a comma after what you wrote, and then said unless an extension of time is approved in advance by the Board of Sewer Commissioners,
yeah,
prior to the expiration of the application approval date. You know, that's what, in other words, I can't make it ironclad, but there are circumstances, and I'm not sure if in the past anybody has got the connection into the foundation in 60 days. Meaning, I think it's almost impossible.
no,
Now,
it's 6 months. 6 months. It's 6 months.
6 months, I know, but in 6 months, today, there isn't a house in Cohasset that takes less than a year to build. I mean, none of them today. But it is, meaning the situation we had before was that we extended something so many times. It was 3, 4, 5 years. That's that you have to.
That's a difference.
Right, you know what I mean?
He got too many extensions. It was something that wasn't paid for.
Right. Right, so I gave a little bit more money for the money, right? Is what I suggest. The 60 days is the fee, the financial part of it. The 6 months was the construction of it. And you saw that it was almost like the issuance of the sewer connection does not release the applicant from all necessary and local permits. It's like, it should be from all permits. whether they're local or everything, because it just doesn't sound right. What's a necessary permit versus a local permit?
I don't know.
And what about a state permit? Right?
Yeah,
And then I think I don't know where you have it, where the fees are listed for the application.
so it's on the application itself.
There we go. All right.
That has the fee.
So online, you can see the application.
Pardon me?
Online, you can look at the application.
Yes.
Okay.
And it has the fee structure, and it also includes the disconnect fee.
What fee?
Disconnect?
Disconnect. Yeah, that's something we added recently, right?
Right.
During your tenure. And then I was surprised about the recorded deed thing. I never knew that was, I don't know, maybe I just missed it. If I had the Schutzes, for instance, might not be a good example, but they sold off a portion of their large estate for a house lot. So it's the house lot that can't be subdivided further. But if they were to have sold off half of their estate and leaving enough land that the estate could be subdivided, I don't see where the need is for us to care whether a piece of property is legally subdivided.
Yeah, that's the assessor's office, isn't it?
Well, it's the planning board, really,
Planning board, yeah.
because it's either almost all lots in Cohasset are subdivided by conforming to the lot size and then having a plan sign that says approval not required by the planning board. So it's called a Form A. And so if it has 50 foot of frontage, 125 feet of width, and 35,000 square feet, whatever the district is, the plan would show that signed by an engineer, and the balance of the property would be also in conformance. Then that's a Form A, and that is approval not required. But you have to have them sign it. So.
Ooh, thunder. Did you hear that? Are you getting thunder?
I thought that was you.
Got it here, lightning as well.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Everyone's a little short right now, but we'll be having more people here.
Most everybody's on.
Oh, they are.
For Paul. I think that's it, just Paul. Oh, and Brian, if Brian's going to attend.
Morning. Guys.
Morning, Dan. Morning, Bill.
How are you guys?
Good, how are you?
I'm wonderful.
Good morning, Greg. Nice to meet you. Is there a name associated with the your website is K-P Law? Is there a K and a P?
There used to be. Good morning, everyone. I'm Greg Corbo, newly appointed town council for the town of Cohasset. And yes, I work for the law firm of KP Law, which is formerly known as Kopelman and Page. Mr. Kopelman has since retired from the firm, and Mr. Page sadly has passed away, but we carry on the torch.
Okay, so
Good.
thank you.
Well, nice to meet you. I think we'll have some business for you in the next week or two.
Great, great. And Lisa and I have already, I think, started discussing some of that business.
Excellent. Okay. Anything from Paul?
I have nothing.
Huh. Yeah, he responded to an email of mine this morning. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we start? I've got an 11 o'clock call that I have to make. So why don't we start the meeting and I'll call it to order at 10:03. And present are Lisa McGonigal, Bill McGowan, Wayne Sawchuk, and Dan Coughlin. What does October the 7th look like for our next session?
October 7th, is that a Thursday by any chance?
I
The
think it's-
Thursday,
Oh, it is? Maybe maybe I put the wrong date on it.
The 12th, maybe?
the 12th would be in 2 weeks, Bill.
Hmm.
Oh, you were in September.
No, that's probably why. No, I'm
So
looking at,
October 12th,
I'm looking at October. Yeah, you're right. It is the 7th is what I'm thinking. Excuse me, October 12th is what I'm thinking.
All right.
Yeah, it works for me. Okay. So I guess what we want to do, it looks like Paul is an attendee.
oh, I have him. Yep, I'll promote him. And we have Rob and Scott to discuss the Chapello Road pump station.
Okay, why don't we get right on that, and hopefully we'll get Paul in here as well.
There it is.
Paul,
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone. Bill, do you want me to just start?
I do.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we had our O&M specialist do a preliminary inspection. And that's the report we shared, I think, with everybody, the Word file.
Mhm.
Talking about the pump stations. And then when you got into the major upgrade and stop and shop and the connections and stuff, I reached out to Krista Forty, who's one of our engineers out of I think she's out of the Canton office. But anyway, when I started talking to get Jason out to do a simplified inspection, it became a little more complicated. So Jody's was a retrofit, change in place, in kind, do what we got to do. When I started talking to Krista, Jason Creel was pretty involved during your regionalization discussions. And what concerned me, and I didn't want to screw anything up, is they when they did the regionalization, they evaluated the pump station, and they assumed with Stop and Shop and 40B development coming in, and the additional flows at the pump station would have to be upsized. So I had conflicting information, so we haven't made a move either way. I did ask Krista to summarize everything into a task order, and it'll take about 40 to 60 hours to do. They'll go back into the regionalization to see why it had to be upgraded. They'll send 2 people out to evaluate it in detail to put together a task order. The electrical system's being looked at, so that that'll be an assumption that that's okay based on the pumps and the operation of the system. A couple of things they will do. They'll evaluate the pump station, supplement Jody's evaluation conducted, prepare a memo summarizing all the equipment into estimated cost in the task order, electrical assessments incorporated in recommendations in the memo, power demands, blah, blah, blah. Detailed structural evaluation will not be conducted. They'll perform a limited visual of the wet well. Pump tests will not be included as part of the evaluation because it's assumed the pump station that was done is satisfactory. So long story real short, if you want a detailed task order where you could bid it out, and fully assess it. They estimate 40 to 60 hours and $10,000 done on the engineering side as opposed to generic on the O&M side.
Rob, what was the driving force, do you know, for them wanting to upgrade? Was it other connections, future connections, you know?
40, let me, just one moment, Dan. I think it's 40B. So this memo comes from Krista Forty, who works with Jason Creel and some other people. So Jason worked very closely on the regionalization study. When they were doing that work, I'll read it verbatim actually. When we completed the regional plan, we evaluated the pump station. We have a cost estimate for replacement. Please note that during this project, it was assumed that both Stop and Shop and the 40B development adjacent to Stop and Shop was anticipated to be connected. With these additional flows, the pump station would need to be upsized. We have this information and can certainly dig it up. It is my understanding that the town's consultant, which would be you, Dan, I believe, has already evaluated the flows to the station and determined that the pump station doesn't need to be upsized as part of the project. So so it had to be. They thought that you felt that it didn't have to be. And with all the conflicting information, they said, what they're saying is, therefore, they won't provide a detailed evaluation of the flows, but if there's any concerns that arise during the preliminary review of the regional plan in comparison to the town's evaluation, they're going to bring it all to everyone's attention.
So I get, and you, Rob, you probably don't have an answer to this, but I got to believe this was the quote unquote regionalization with Situate and Hull. And having a 40B adjacent to Chief Justice Cushing is news to me, unless it's the one that sort of popped up in Situate at the last minute that they wanted to connect it, or had sort of floated a connection of that project down off of 3As. And I know that they did some studies. And again, we're going over old ground, but we weren't really given 100% access to what was going on. So,
Okay.
Maybe 25% access, but that's another story.
Yeah.
And I wish Brian was on, because I'd ask him if there's been any future developments with it. So, and maybe Lisa, you can ask him when he gets them on, what's going on with that, because I know that the town managers are supposed to meet. I know certainly, again, with Situate and perhaps with Hull. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what we're planning, but I thought that the inspection of Tapella Road was obviously started because of the failures that happened there, but also, if we're going to do, maybe at the most go down South Main Street, but I don't foresee anything larger than that, particularly that we would pay for, since Situate said if they want to connect and do something else, they'll pay for everything. Well, I just wanted to put that out there. So
I appreciate that. And I'll go any direction you would like. What I'm just trying to be careful of is, Jody looked at the condition of the equipment and said, replacing kind, you probably want to do this, this, and this. So pricing had to go to it. I didn't want to spend a cent of your money until we had clear direction. Are we looking to put this out to bid? If we are, then we probably want to develop a whole task order through the engineering side, as opposed to just changing. But again, I leave it for you and for the commission and Dan to decide.
Yeah, I mean, at this point in time, the last time I looked at it, it was probably somewhere between 25% and 30% runtime on the station. And, certainly you could upsize the pumps if needed, but, with that type of runtime, typically, the station should be able to handle the flow. Probably be good to take a look at some of the recordings that you have, or for your pump starts up at the station. Scott, you there? You have some of that information for the station?
We're together in the trailer. He's on mute. He can hear you, Ben.
Okay. So, I mean, take a look at some of those, you know, daily run times, I think, just to take a peek at it. But I think from the perspective of what we're tying in, it's not that significant an increase to the station at this point. So an equipment assessment, you know, evaluation of what we have to do, for the most part, again, my perspective is that this is basically maintenance and repair of the station, which is something that theoretically you could have your operator do without having to go out to public bid. There's nothing in here that we're actually upgrading at this point in time. Greg, new town council, you can weigh in as well, but we have a service contract right now with Woodin and Curran for the operation, maintenance, and repair of the wastewater facilities. And what we're talking about is basically upgrading some of the equipment or replacing some of the equipment to make sure it's up to speed and function. So I would think we'd still be able to do that through Woodin and Curran. So that's why your price proposal was important. And I think, in my opinion, that's probably the way we could go. If we look at the price proposal, it's a significant amount of work. You know, then at that point in time, I guess you could evaluate a public bid, which again, we could probably put together for you pretty quick too. But to look at it in terms of a regional expansion at this point in time, personally, I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah, Wayne and Paul, you want to throw your?
Well, Wayne here. We don't really know whether or not the terminology for a 40B project was in North Situate, or whether or not they were referring to Avalon in terms of picking that up.
Yeah.
But they have their own treatment plant today, so that really wouldn't seem to be a necessity for them. So, and with Woodward and Curran doing all the work, it seems as though there should be a phone call or something that just says, what did you know, what flows were you estimating to go into this pump station? Because they must have had some flow if they said that, you know, they had these two things they were going to connect. So did they know at the time what the flow was for the Stop and Shop property, or did they just pick a number?
Yeah, it could have been a service area too that they were trying to tie into this station. And I think when they were doing that evaluation, they were using kind of like standard flow generation criteria for vacant lands. So, I mean, that could be part of it too. But again, this is a single out of the district connection for a limited project. So
Right.
I think that's really all we have to look at this point.
Yeah, I would agree with Dan. I think we had the failure at the station, which caused us to take a look at it, and then we approved the sewer connection from Stop and Shop to it. And you know, Dan wanted to make sure that when we fix the problem that's there, any upgrades that are necessary to be done at the same time so that we can handle the additional flow. I don't see how it would be outside of the scope of work that they do for us now. So I don't think that it would rise to the level of going out for bid or anything like that. I think it's well within the maintenance scope of what we're doing.
Yeah,
I agree with that. So I think, you know,
if everyone's comfortable, just the maintenance, you know, within the maintenance agreement and the replacing kind, then what we'll do is we'll solicit the pump vendor and get a price for the pumps, and we'll just change them. I'm really good with that. I just wanted clarity. I didn't know what agreement you're working with Stop and Shop. I didn't want to screw something up, and then you know, history comes up and we should have did something different.
Yeah, Rob, I think we still want to see a scope and price proposal too with all the tasks. You know, we had talked about maybe control upgrades and you know, maybe even the mission or telemetry upgrades at the station as well. So, I mean, we'd still like to see the proposal if you can finalize that. And
Yeah,
in terms of the station, we'll take another look. Scott, Papa, if you can send me some info or put it aside for me and let me know on that station as far as its activation and run times, that would be great. Maybe copy the page of run times and send it to me. You know, that would be a good first step.
he said yes, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Easy to accomplish. You're welcome. Again, he's right to the left and there'll be echo if we both turn on.
Yeah.
So the proposal for all the upgrades and stuff, I'm a little bit confused, and forgive me. If we just replace in kind, we don't have to get anyone involved. If we want to develop a whole proposal, then I have to ask the engineering side to do that.
We just want an estimate of tasks for the upgrades. You had the original evaluation of the station saying certain things needed upgrading. We're just looking for a cost proposal for that work so that the board has a number for the upgrades. We need a defined number because a portion of these costs is going to be allocated to the new user on the system.
Okay, so for us, it's just time, basically. If we're doing it through the maintenance, it's just labor.
Okay, but we need a defined cost estimate. We need something in writing, basically, to give to the connected user.
Yep. Scott's good.
Isn't it also important to know what all of the pump stations are in terms of its condition and stuff? And is that something that is reported to us annually or semi-annually or however often?
They inspect it daily. I mean, there's visual inspections, anything noted, any deficiencies noted, we bring it to the attention, either repair it or bring it to your attention, and or both.
Okay.
There hasn't been comprehensive pump station evaluations per se, Wayne.
Okay.
And just sort of connects. Go ahead.
Ask a question? Yeah, just as I'm not intimately familiar with the project yet at this point, but I think in addition to having a cost estimate, you're going to want to have a detailed scope of work so that we can see how that does fit in with your existing contracts and whether this is something that we can fit in within the maintenance contract that exists, or whether this is something that has to be bid out as its separate and its own item. So I think that we need both of those pieces: scope of work and cost estimate, so we can see where it fits in to the picture.
I think that's what we're asking for too.
Yeah, so you're gonna go on mute. Sorry. No, you are on mute. Turn your speaker off. Sorry.
Try that.
All right, so absolutely, we could certainly give you a detailed pricing of if we wanted to rebuild the two pumps, if we wanted to change the level indicators that are in there, we can certainly, I can find out what it costs for each of those. We could estimate what the labor is going to be to replace all that stuff with operations doing it. That's the easy part, because we could just get strict numbers on what those things cost. The harder part's going to be the detailed, the detail that you want, because now that's not us. That's a different department that's doing that. And that's where this proposal came in of the $10,000, where I can't go in there and do a detailed evaluation and tell you everything, all the different scopes of everything that's going to have to be done. That's just not something that I'm capable of doing. That's something that our engineering department would do. And that's where this proposal was coming in. So it's kind of which way you want to go. I can't do both. I can certainly say we can give you a list of items of what we're going to replace, the cost of what those items are, and estimate the labor that we put into it. That's easy. The other side is going to be more detailed, is going to be more cost, basically.
No, I think we're talking about two different things, Scott. I think what you're talking about as far as the scope of work, replacing certain things, that's what we need. You just need it detailed out, on a task by task basis, pumps, replace pumps or rebuild pumps, level indicators, additional heater, telemetry system, these types of things basically as line items. And generally speaking, your service contract covers a lot in that area. It's just new construction is really the trigger point. And I don't think anything that we're talking about here is new construction. So it's not like we're just looking for a lump sum. We want basically what work is going to be done. And I think if you looked at the original scope review, essentially all we have to do is assign numbers to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's why I said that going that route is the easy part. I could take that evaluation that Jody did everything that he's mentioned, we can put a price to what it's gonna be to buy that. And then estimate, like I said, there's gonna be some,
Time for installation, right?
correct, but again, that's the part.
That's
That
it.
we can certainly do.
It's- Yeah, that's all we're really looking for. And I mean, it's obviously as you're repairing something, especially, some things do come up, some prices do change, a wearing ring or something else might need. I mean, it's only at this point in time, an estimate so the board can approve and authorize the work to proceed. Which, really we want to try to get moving as quickly as possible too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, we could certainly break it down line by line, piece by piece, what it's gonna be to replace and go from there and let you know.
So can I ask a question relative to the old and the new pump stations? So we're rehabbing the old, but what if today I said, could you go out and give me a flow rate coming into the pump station or leaving the pump station? What would you just do, the runtime times the, you'd have to figure out the volume of the tank with the level? Or is this is there telemetry or an HDMI where that's done for you? Because the future connection and the agreement is flow based in a lot of ways, and to synthesize that in an easy, to use format would, if we're going to do some upgrades, maybe it's not that hard to get a program to do that.
I mean, we have, I'm sorry, Dan. We have, we go out there every day, we document the run times. We have in our program an already math calculation that takes that number of the hours of the runtime and calculates it into a flow number. So I can certainly give you that number. I mean, roughly off the top of my head, you're talking, it's about 17,000 gallons a day, I believe. But I have that hard number in our program already.
All right, great. Because, once CJC is built out and connected, that's, our historical numbers versus what they're contributing, I think is part and parcel with terms of the agreement. So
Yeah,
that's great.
One thing we had talked about too was the mission system upgrade, and if they're replacing what we have now with a mission system, then you could actually incorporate the conversion into their web-based program for more accurate or regular readings. And then all you really need is basically every so often, whether it's 6 months or every year, do a drawdown test for each pump at the pumping station just to get its average rate of flow, because the pump output does degrade over time as impeller wears or other items like that. So, and that way you can confirm your multiplier for the station. But I don't know if you had the mission in there on your original write-up. I don't recall, but that is something we've talked about for all the stations, and obviously want to incorporate.
Yeah, I would have to go back and look to see which two. I know we had it for the two of the stations. I'm just not sure which two they were.
Okay.
Rob, do you guys have a good marching order? You know what to do?
Yes. Sorry. We can't both talk. Sorry about that. Yes, I'm good. We'll pull it out. We'll get you replacement costs for the pump, estimate replacement costs, and we'll sort of piecemeal the whole Jody's written thing for pricing.
Yep. Okay. And then I think the board, we can vote on it once we get a chance to look over.
I believe I understand what you'd like.
Okay.
Yeah, when we get it, Greg will just forward it over to you, and maybe I'll give you a little paragraph or something, a recommendation, you can evaluate it.
Okay.
Greg, weren't you bond counsel a while back too for the town? I thought KP was bond counsel for a period.
Yeah, we might be. It's kind of a little separate from me. I'm not quite sure.
Brian, are you still on?
It should be.
Yeah, I know. I can see him. Although he's turned his microphone off.
Let me text him.
Could be on a call.
Sorry, was there a question directed my way?
Yes. I figured the reason why I was warming myself up is why you put me on mute, but that's all right. So we had a question about, which has recurred a couple of times, if there's anything going on, between Cohasset and Situate or both towns and Hull. Has there been any further discussions on that? I mean, to your knowledge?
There's been no meetings since our last meeting. We've talked, I guess, in-house between the town manager, myself, and, just basically on next steps, but there hasn't been any meetings, inter-town meetings that I've been involved with.
Okay.
When was the last meeting?
I don't know. Bill was at that meeting. It was at the
April?
library.
Yeah, middle of April, maybe?
Okay.
Yeah. So that was Situate and Cohasset. There was a select board member, Bill, his counterpart, and kind of the town engineer and from Situate, and myself, and I think a couple of other members.
Yeah, and I think, I know that there were a couple of select board members, but I think they were trying to move something along. It's just, I got a call from another member of the select board this week wanting to know what's happening, and I'm, I don't know, so. All right, well, maybe we can bring it up to Chris and ask what's happening formally. So, all right, that's all I need.
Yeah, I haven't asked him anything recently, so I'll ask him today and see if he had any meetings, maybe town manager to town manager type thing.
Okay, all right. Okey doke. So Rob and Scott, I think you guys can, unless you've got other business you want to get through, I think we're okay.
So I have something, and I apologize, I got on a little late here. We've been having discussions with the Board of Health and Cook Estates and their engineer, and basically their issues that with their system up on the drumlin behind Stop and Shop at the top of Sawyer Street. And, looking at potential avenues for connecting to sewer, if that ultimately is what needs to be done. And the question I have for Rob and Scott is the Deer Hill pump station. Is it possible to do kind of an evaluation on where the Deer Hill pump station is condition wise and capacity wise? What kind of flow is it rated for, and what kind of flow is it taking? Cook Estates is roughly 7,500 gallons a day, Title V. So actual would be a lot less, but just trying to see avenues of connection. Is it going to go towards the CJC one, or would it go towards Deer Hill? And that way, if we ended up going there, I'm not foregoing any discussion or, from the board on that.
So Deer Hill, we haven't had a formal evaluation of that. We can have one of our specialists come down, just like we had the evaluation of Tupelo. I can have somebody come down and give you a nice detailed evaluation of Deer Hill, if that's what you are looking for. Absolutely.
And Brian, not to be cheeky on this, but who would be paying for this? Would the Cook Estate be paying for it?
It's a good question, Bill. They're at the point where, they have a failed system officially, and, they've spent about 200,000 thus far on pumping and engineering costs. So, they're at the point where they would pay for an evaluation on which way they would go, but I can't speak for them, but I guess that's yet to be determined.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at, it might be worthwhile for us at some point to have a discussion as a board with them to see where they're going. Because I've heard from some of the occupants there, two of them, how come we're not getting sewered? Well, I don't know.
Yeah. So Bill, just so you know, it was, I think last Wednesday, we had a meeting with the Board of Health, their engineer, and kind of a report that they did on a hydraulic study. We've asked for some additional, kind of reporting on the hydraulics out there so that they can come before the board to talk about the sewer and that kind of, so it's on a near future agenda for you guys, but we asked them to kind of synthesize the report and give it, a few loose ends, get them all tied up so that, most questions could be answered.
Brian, the last time I think we spoke to him, we told him basically the normal criteria is basically that no other feasible alternative was available to, not just that they had a failed system. So, I mean, we talked about, maybe drip being applicable, maybe some other methods might be applicable to the site. You know if they've done any alternative analysis?
Sorry, yeah, so part of the discussion was basically going through the site, going through all the test bits that they've done and alternatives analysis and kind of, they're at the point where they've kind of disproven, that an on-site sewage is going to work. So they're kind of getting that report together. If there's any questions on that one, once we're received, I'll send it to the board through Lisa and you can take a look at it and we'll, that should be prior to the meeting with you guys.
Yeah, thanks.
And one question I have is does Deer Hill connect to Osgood and then connect to the street going down Pleasant Street?
Pleasant? Yes.
So there are two pump stations technically involved in it.
No.
Oh, they both go separately over the.
Does it go out down Evergreen or out towards Old Pasture?
Yeah, Deer Hill goes up, as you said, goes up to Osgood and goes down Pleasant by gravity. And then that's gravity all the way down to the influent pump station.
Yeah.
Veterans does the same thing. It pumps up on Reservoir side and then discharges into Pleasant Street. So the two are separate, but by the time they hit Pleasant Street, it's all gravity.
Okay. So there is or there isn't a pump at Deer Hill School? There is, right?
There's a pump station at Deer Hill School that pumps up to Osgood.
Okay. And then Osgood pumps it or Osgood goes gravity down?
Osgood Street is basically, it's gravity at the top of Pleasant. It's all gravity.
So there's only one pump involved. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Two submersible pumps at Deer Hill School.
Okay.
Yeah, Wayne, prior to, I guess, looking at this, so I could send over the schematic from the design that shows the dots type thing.
And Brian, when are they looking, or are they looking to start this in like, a month or so, or what? I mean, I know that they're pumping, I guess, on a bi-weekly or monthly basis, a lot of the residents. When are they looking at coming before us to make an application to do this?
They're looking as soon as possible. And part of that is getting their report finalized. So I think they would want to request to be on an agenda, the next meeting's agenda, potentially. Again, I don't want to speak for them, but that was the, what I got from them at the meeting last week, that they want to get to a conclusion on this.
So Brian, when we talk about a quicker state connection, are we talking about only the system that's failed? Or are we talking about the entire flow for the development?
Likely the entire flow for the development.
But my understanding is the other two systems were working.
I think there's issues with all of them. There are two that are definitely failed. The other two are, being pumped. So I think the entirety of the comp 7500 connected.
Okay.
So they're pumping the field that is working?
So they are pumping, I'll get clarification on that. The two of the fields are offline and the flow to the other one's being pumped. So we'll have the details before the meeting so you guys can digest it a couple of days before.
Because we were under the impression that half of the units were working satisfactorily and the other half wasn't. And so I don't know. I don't know if they have the ability to be able to switch where the sewage is going up there. I assume that half of it was going to one and then the other half was taking to another system.
I think there's 3 systems up there, Wayne,
Three?
if I recall correctly. Yeah. And 2
Yes,
of them
sir.
were stacked on each other, one above the other.
Yeah.
And those are the 2 that, that infiltration profile isn't able to take the flow from both.
Right.
Yeah, there's actually, so there's 4 SASs up there. So they're kind of like 2 stacked on one side, 2 stacked on the other side.
Okay.
And 2 have failed. The other 2 are still operational, but the soils up there are not ideal. And I'd imagine a connection for part would make sense to do a connection for all.
So I guess my last question on this, and Brian, I know you weren't around when this happened, but how could this have been put in? How could this been designed and approved and then failed so quickly thereafter?
That's a good question, Bill. I don't know the answer to that.
Well, this has been installed for a number of years. It's not,
No, I know, but I mean, but a lot of other places have had septic systems installed and, they work forever. So I mean, as a non-educated guy, I sort of look at it that, how did this one fail? You're at the top of a hill, which to me, stuff rolls downhill. I just, it just kind of boggles me that it's this, geographically, that drumlin didn't grow in the past 15 years. So it had to have been there in the same condition as it is today. So I'm just wondering what happened. That's all.
So Bill, I think it's kind of a water table issue up there. There's a lot of bad soils, clay and, impervious type soils underneath the drumlin. They excavated out and put in nice Title V sand for the leaching systems. But if you think of that as like, kind of a bathtub, it's basically containing the water above an impervious surface. So it's somewhat of a bathtub, and it's not really leaching down through the the soils. It's more perching and breaking out on the side slopes.
right, because they didn't do an interceptor drainage system up above, so that it would have caught the natural water that's going through the ground and not have that go into the septic system.
I also understand the soils on the Stop and Shop side are probably better as well.
No. All right, well, I suppose we can dig in this when we have to, and just Lisa, just let us know when you get the material and when we schedule a meeting for them.
I guess back to my original point before Scott and Rob left, I wanted to make sure that if we could do an evaluation of the pump station just to see, does it have capacity for this and where it stands today, that'd be helpful. That's a critical piece of information. Thanks.
All right.
Do we have to get the Cook Estates to approve for paying for the eval?
Well,
How
I
much
think
is the bill for Tupelo?
Yes.
Yeah, how much is that?
well, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there with it between 40 and 60, but I don't know what the final evaluation. We're going to get a proposal from them for that, so we'll have a better idea of what that is when we get it.
I guess, we could ask right now, Scott, is any deficiencies that you know of right now on the Deer Hill? I know you have a pump problem at one point in time.
Did have a pump problem. We do have, the biggest issue we have going there is twofold. One is that there's no alarm system there. We really need to get our emission system up running there, especially if we're going to add more flow. The other issue is the rails holding the guide rails for one of the pumps have completely rotted away, and we only have one pump there right now. I have 3 pumps, so we have plenty of pumps to pump. But we are in the process of trying to re-engineer, I guess, those guide rails, because I haven't been able to just call up somebody and get those. But other than the guide rails, there are no real issues other than, it's got a lot of old stuff in there. It's just been there a while. But the pumps are fine. Pumps work great. Like I said, I have 3 pumps for two. It has 2 pumps all the time. So I have a backup. We're just only able to use one right now. But
Check valves, okay.
yeah, I mean, that's knock on wood. That's one of our strong running stations. We haven't experienced many issues with that.
What about emergency power up there? Is that
We have the generator up there. Generators exercise monthly. It's serviced yearly and working fine.
Does that station have its own meter, or are we running off of power for the school?
Has its own meter, I believe. Has its own meter.
Okay.
The only other question I have is, do we know what the anticipated flows to that coming from Cook are going to be? Because he'll need that for his evaluation.
Yeah, so the Title V flow is 5 gallons.
What was that again, Bruce?
Obviously- Can you hear me?
You broke up a little.
So the design flow, Title V, is 7,500 gallons. So it would be, obviously that's conservative. We'll take a look at the water meter reading historical and see what, maybe get a better flavor of what it looks like in actual. But if I had to guess, I'd say half of that, 7,500, you're probably looking at, 35.
Right, but for a peak flow, it might be as much as maybe 15 or so gallons per minute.
Yeah, I can reach out to them today and see what it's going to take to get somebody down there to give a good evaluation of it. The only other question I have has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Is I'm just checking in on the posting of the RDT. I don't know if we have an update, if that's going to be posted today.
I think that was a question from Michelle.
What is an RDT? Is this?
It's our sludge thickener.
Yeah, okay.
Going out to bid.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll check with Michelle later today.
Yeah, we had checked with her earlier. She was just saying that she was hoping to post it today.
Okay.
We were just looking for confirmation because we're just trying to get that going.
Okay.
Other than that, unless you have any questions, we're good here.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
See you, Rob.
See you guys.
Hi, thank you.
Okay, in the remaining time, let's look at the sewer connection application process if we can. I got your copy of your email, Wayne. Do you want to go over that with us in addition to the application itself?
Yes, I just thought if we're going to go ahead and add one line, there were a couple of things that I had, some just some sort of like practical, I guess. And so I thought the fee is to be paid in total 60 days from the date of board approval. I suggested 90 days because I feel as though financing of properties and stuff generally takes a little while, and asking for the total amount within 60 days, maybe it was better to go a little bit more. So my suggestion was to change it from 60 to 90.
Okay.
Next to that, basically with a comma after the red part that you're saying that the connection sewer line going into the foundation. I just thought that despite our real problems and having something be extended for year after year after year, I thought that it should say, comma, unless an extension of time is approved in advance by the Board of Sewer Commissioners prior to the expiration of the application approval date. And thinking that in Cohasset, it takes about a year to build a house versus what you could get done in 6 months. So, but I think 6 months should be the guideline, but there should be an opportunity to be able to extend that if there were good reasons for doing it.
On the extension, my only comment there, would we want to put in any language to say, the applicant can have a one-time extension?
Well, we don't know. We didn't set the amount of time that in other words, someone could come in before it's expired and say, I need 30 more days to get this. I hit ledge, I did this, I did that, and I can't do it. Versus I'm not saying automatically 6 months. But if I said, I think it just, what are the real circumstances? You know what I mean? In terms
Well,
of.
what would happen if they miss the deadline? I thought that if they missed the deadline, they would just have to reapply. No.
In normal cases, if you were, if you were doing something, right, you're starting at the street and you're going in and you hit ledge and it takes a week here, you have to wait for the guy to come in and blast it, but you got to do this, that, and everything. That it's always been that if you're continuously doing something, you have until you finish it. I mean, that's what I think in terms of most permits. So it's, I mean, that's my opinion, and we can let Dan know too. On the Lisa says that on our application for connection, the fees for that are all spelled out. And so because I question whether or not the fee schedule that we're doing for the application should be part of the sewer privilege and connection fee policy for residential lots, that there should be something in one spot for it. But if it's on the application and we're not changing it at all, then that's fine. And the last
Mr.
thing
Chair,
that I
through
had-
you, could I just address this issue of extensions?
Mhm.
And in particular to Lisa's comment about what the consequences are. It would seem to me that people requesting extensions would fall into one of two categories. The first category being people who have started doing work and have encountered problems in the course of the work and need more time to finish. It would seem like those types of extensions, could be and probably should be granted to allow people to finish projects that they've started in reliance on being able to connect to the sewer, versus people who, apply for a connection permit simply to reserve their flow in the system, but never do anything with it. And it would seem to me like in that situation, you might have an interest in saying, okay, if you haven't even started the work in 6 months or a year, then your permit is going to expire, and you're going to have to reapply and get back in line with everyone else.
So we've had that issue already. The issue I have with this particular subject matter is that we say that a connection has to occur within 6 months, meaning connecting through the foundation. A couple of contractors came on and said that this is the only town they've ever heard of in 20 years that requires that. So I don't know how accurate that comment is, but then Wayne got into the conversation of, well, when construction begins, and then the question is, well, how do you define when construction begins? And that's where we got into trouble. So what we need is something that clearly defines what that policy is. So if we're going to issue a permit for 6 months, then construction must begin within 6 months. And to define that construction must begin is when you are issued a permit by the building inspector or something, some mechanism has to occur. And that would keep people from holding these things like carbon tax credits, so we want to make sure that something occurs, which is when we've had these issues come up, is when things don't occur. So so if somebody reasonably comes in, we say construction has to begin within 6 months, then they're fine. And once construction begins, if they incur issues, I would say that we would want to block it at like a 90-day extension at a time kind of thing, and give a time limit to those extensions. Certainly, if construction doesn't begin within 6 months, I would agree with it, having it pulled back and have to reapply and
Yeah,
pay the fee again. So
Yeah. And Paul, I'd add to, something that basically, what the definition of construction is. I mean, having a contractor go in and putting a sign on a property isn't construction. And some of these people were flying pretty loose on what they thought, putting hay bales and other stuff up, that's construction. I don't think so. I mean, I'd like to see an excavator or somebody digging holes or framing go up or something. I mean, I think we should have some reasonable definition of what the word construction is. And that if it stops for a certain amount of time, then what happens? Because this stuff happens all the time.
I like what Paul had to say, which was really having this start when the building permit is issued, because construction should not be happening before that, right? And there may be something that holds up the start of construction because of getting the permitting. I mean, I know people can take 6 months to get a building permit because they've got to go to conservation, they've got to do this, they got to do that, the meetings are extended, all the different things that happen.
Maybe you change it to 9 months after approval or 6 months after building permit issuance. You have 2 timeframes on it.
Yeah.
Because you don't want them waiting to get a building permit either.
My only concern, which has happened to us before, is that somebody gets a building permit and then sits on it.
Right.
And whatever the reasons are why they didn't start, that's not our fault, and by default, they're sort of reserving capacity and, I can't build on this lot, can I go build on that lot? That kind of thing.
So what I would suggest is that you have two timeframes, one for commencement of the work and one for completion of the work, and either timeframe can be extended upon a showing that the applicant is prosecuting the work diligently and in good faith. So again, to cover Wayne's scenario where somebody in good faith is trying to install this pipe and they hit ledge, and then that requires them to have to go back to the drawing board. That would certainly be a circumstance, I would think, in which you'd want to say, okay, we can give you another 90 days and come back to us and show us that you're continuing to make progress, versus the person who, puts in some hay bales and then walks away for a year. To that person, you could say, no, this is not, in the liquor licensing context, they call them pocket licenses, where you have this license that you don't actually use just to prevent someone else from getting it. And, that's not why we're giving out these permits. And so you have to show us that, you're diligently and in good faith prosecuting this work. And if you can't show that, then we're going to take the permit away and be able to give it to someone else.
Lisa, did you get all that?
Yeah. I mean,
I do agree with that. And I think the second half of that, though, is going to be based on how well we define the first. So, how well we define the first parameters of construction and demonstrating good faith efforts moving forward will codify the second piece, where if you don't do anything at all, then it comes back to the sewer commission.
I also think that the extension should also be the discretion of the board, not an automatic, just simply the discretion of the board. And, you know, Wayne had a lot of good points too. What I would recommend is, based upon all the comments, I make a couple of edits to this and then circulate it again to everybody to see if it covers everything.
Yeah, I'd also like, I'm gonna get off in a minute, or 30 seconds. Greg, first of all, nice to meet you, but so if you could just put a, quick couple of lines together and we'll amalgamate them into something, but because I like your thought process.
I have two other quick things on bullet number 6, where it says, the issuance of sewer connection permit does not release the applicant from all necessary and local permits. I just think should say all necessary permits.
I agree.
Whether it's local or state or anything, it just didn't read right.
Right.
And the last question, and maybe Greg could comment very quickly, but I sort of didn't realize that on bullet point number 1, where it says only, let's see, a residential lot, and it says only with a recorded deed restriction stipulating the lot is not further subdividable. I didn't know why that was even in there in terms of, and I don't know if it's ever been done by anybody, because if you bought a 5-acre piece of property and you're building a house on it, and at some point in time you want to subdivide a portion of it, it seems to me that it shouldn't be that because you got one sewer permit, you can't do something with the property. Any comment to that, Greg?
Yeah, guys, I'm gonna leave, so I'll leave you to it. All right, thank you.
It was nice to meet you, Bill.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Bill.
likewise, take care.
Hi, Bill.
So I have seen circumstances where the right to a sewer connection is based on what you have at the time that the sewer went in. And that's a way of controlling flow. Because, if you have, let's say you have one lot, and as one lot, under zoning, it can probably only have one primary structure on it. And so that's going to limit you in terms of flow, what you can do. But if that lot is of a certain size where it can be subdivided, now you can double. And that may not be something that you're interested in. I don't know what the capacity limitations are of the system. But I think that would be a rationale for not allowing subdivision, because it's a way of controlling flow and development.
But in Cohasset, prior to the sewering of, or actually in the sewering of the 450 homes in the Little Harbor District, we provided connections only to those 450 houses. Since that time, lots have been subdivided, and in fact, a new lot, and they have to go into the street and do all the, spend all the money and are building more houses in that area, because now that sewer's there, they don't have to worry about having their perk test or anything like that done. But in many cases, there are several large properties that they might have spun off one, and I'm just confused as to whether or not this has ever been done.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Been followed through by our department to in fact see whether or not there was a deed restriction put in, and would in certain circumstances, with lenders or anything else, allow something like that to go on.
I mean, every time you approve an application, you approve it based upon an EDU basis,
Mhm.
And that kind of defines what is allowable on that lot. Whether it's subdivided or not, that's, you've granted a certain allocation of flow for that property. Anybody who subdivides would still have to come back, and still has come back for a new application for connection, and then it's subject to basically capacity in the system. So I don't really think the deed restriction portion really is applicable. I don't think it's needed here.
I just don't know.
Well, there's certainly not any, I should say, I wouldn't recommend leaving something in there that, is not enforced, because that's going to create problems in other areas, So, I mean, as a matter of policy, you have to decide, I think, yes, we're willing to allow people to subdivide and deal with, new applications as they come in based on capacity, or no, we don't want them to subdivide. But if you're going to leave it in there and not enforce it, I think it is going to set you up for problems down the line.
Yeah, I think though the deed restriction piece of it, I don't think lives in our department. I think it would live somewhere else. We're permitting sewer connections, not whether or not something could be subdivided and additional sewer be added to the property. So I don't think the deed restriction piece would live with us. I could be wrong, but I don't know that we could deed restrict
Yeah,
property
I wouldn't think so.
over planning or zoning or any other department. That's the question I have. I mean, Cohasset has a history of having, estates over time divided and divvied up into smaller lots with additional sewer capacity being added to those smaller lots. So we've never run into a deed restriction issue. It's always been some other department.
Yeah, I mean, what you're doing here is basically you're granting the sewer connection, but you're also requiring that deed restriction. And, someone could contest that, that is indeed a taking, you're taking away the development potential for their lot. And I think from the perspective of, our concern is basically we want to know, what's being connected and how much flow is being connected. And that's what the permit process is for, not necessarily placing restrictions on the lot for further development. That's planning and zoning,
I just wondered whether or not we have an example of someone with a 10-acre property on the water. They subdivided a 3-acre lot. They sold it so they could pay their taxes going forward and stuff. And did that mean that the balance of the 7 acres is now deed restricted because it already has a connection, or the new lot that's going to have that has a connection that prevents that? In other words, is there a prevention of letting them make another lot out of their 7 remaining acres because of this type of wording?
I think so. To me, that sounds like you're restricting their further development.
Right. The other problem with it is that, it only applies to people who have already connected one of their lots. And so, if you have a 10-acre lot and you connect it, then you're prohibited from further subdividing. But if you have a 10-acre lot and you subdivide it, then you can connect as many of those lots as you want. So it just, the logic doesn't seem to fit here. And again, if it's not a capacity issue, I would tend to agree then that it's not really your area to be controlling development and subdivisions.
Yeah, so we could probably take that deed restriction piece out. If we, Lisa, if we can get another draft after the meeting today of what Greg's input was, and then remove the deed portion of that, we can take a look at it again.
Yeah, I didn't know, because this is like the fifth time that this sewer privilege and connection thing. I don't know what year that might have been added, or whether in fact it's been in the whole time.
There's a legend on the bottom, I think, right, Lisa, that has the
Well, it
dates
lists,
of,
but it doesn't give me a copy of each one.
Right,
Oh, I
I think Dan might have that. I think this originated from Dan's office.
Yeah, I think I generated the original. I'd have to go back and take a look at that one in 2014.
we just need a legend of what was revised, not the entire agreement. Just what was changed each time, because I think that's what Wayne is looking for.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I have the revisions. That's the only thing. I think those
Okay.
might have been done internally.
Right, so in 2014, did we put it in at that point, or did it get added for some reason?
Yeah.
In any case, it's just a matter of if we're looking to approve this document, we may as well have it upgraded to what we think is, you know, is
So
appropriate.
it should reflect actual practice.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then in that respect, there was one issue that I was going to suggest be addressed in here, and that is to make it more clear that a building permit will not be issued until the fee is paid.
Yeah, I think what we have in there now is we can issue it, but it has to be paid within 90 days. I think is what Wayne has suggested. Is that what we're talking about, Greg?
Well, it just says that the fee has to be paid within 60 days from date of board approval. But I think that we want to expressly address the situation or make it clear to people that this fee has to be paid before they start construction. And certainly before the connection is turned on, so that you don't get into a situation where, you know, something may slip through the cracks, someone connects to the sewer, and then you realize that they didn't pay, and they say, well, I don't think I have to pay. I'm not speaking about any specific.
We currently have that
examples.
we currently have that situation at hand. But
I
go
don't know
ahead.
anything about that. I'm just giving you a hypothetical.
Yeah.
But I think we can, it's something that you can make more clear in the policy so that, you know,
Okay.
you can certainly guide future applicants and boards to make sure that situation does not occur.
Absolutely.
I think that tying it into the building permit in some fashion makes sense in terms of it solves once and for all who's going to pay that fee, because it seems as though buyers and sellers, it's a negotiating thing. You know, I want, you know, if I'm buying a buildable lot, in order to have it buildable, I need sewer. In order for the sewer to, you know, I think that the seller probably should be paying that amount if I was a buyer. Otherwise, it's not buildable. And now you're suddenly letting me know that, oh my goodness, it's going to cost me $37,500 to build my 4-bedroom house for sewer. So I guess another interesting thing is, while we're looking, is that the water department now charges $13,700 for a water connection. And I'd be interested in what their document is in terms of our document, in terms of when they pay for the water connection. Just because it's part of the permitting of the town of Cohasset. It'd be interesting to.
Yeah,
and certainly you want to work with the building department too, and to make sure that in whatever review they're doing before they issue a building permit, that this is on their radar screen, you know, so that there's, you know, just really communication amongst all the departments to make sure that we don't have something like this slipping through the cracks, because, you know, once the connection is made, it's obviously much more difficult of a situation to deal with than it is before.
Yeah, so in our little 9 square miles of Cohasset, we do have a committee that watches other committees to see what everyone else is doing to try and get it on a. So we got our first update from Katie Dugan a couple weeks ago, I guess, of who's applying for what, where, and who's in front of what commission, what, and where. So you're right. It is something that we should check with Bob Halloran. I think that right now, you know, we were in that situation where the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. So I think at minimum, we should run this past him to make sure it's consistent to what he does. And I would agree with Wayne that if we look at the water department to see if we're consistent in the same manner that we carry out the process. So it's contiguous, you know, for someone to build a home to of these various boards and committees. So I think that having a similar process or similar plans is helpful.
Mhm.
So, yes, so I do work with John Hallen,
Yeah.
the building inspector, regarding the sign-offs for the sewer and the building permit. Well, sign off for sewer on the building permits.
Okay.
So that's something that it was an ongoing process. And now I think that he has me sign off on all.
Yeah, and like maybe we could talk to the water department to see what their policy is on their hookup and connection fees and what their timeline is and their requirements. We should be consistent. What, you know, obviously makes sense for our department compared to other departments.
Okay, I'll check with Brenda and Jason. And Wayne, I have the, I can share my screen to show you the application. Let's see. So here's the price structure for the application fee.
So this doesn't address the privilege fee then?
Right.
This is only the
So-
connection fee, right?
Correct. So that's that little note that the betterment will be based upon EDUs serviced. And betterment is not the right word at this time. We can change that to say connection privilege fee, but usually when people call and request a sewer application, I'll also send them the document, the sewer privilege and connection fee document in conjunction with. And then once they're approved, they get an approval letter. And again, it's saying what is due and when it's due.
So would it make sense to, I mean, so first of all, are betterments done? Is anyone else going to be assessed a betterment at this point? I guess only if you do an extension, right?
Typically not, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
So it might make sense to put on this document, you know, what the privilege fee is, or at least a reference back to the policy so that, you know, people have it all in one place. You know, so they don't look at this and, you know, add up what's here and say, okay, that's what I'm going to owe, and then get socked with this other $37,000 bill. You know, I think it would be better if you just put it right on here.
Greg, is it possible for us, I think, I'm starting to think that, you know, $37,500 and then another $13,700, it starts adding up. It almost seems to me that the people should have the ability to be able to put it on, you know, a 10 or 20 year period with the town and spread that amount of money out like it would be if the sewer was going in front of their house right now. And I don't know whether it's legal to do that. And I don't think it hurts the town or the sewer department or the water department to have that cash flow coming in and also with interest, you know, accruing to be able to finance it.
So I'd have to look into that. You know, the one thing I know is that by statute, you can apportion betterments over time. And the thing that is significant about that is for the town's protection, you have a lien on the property for the unpaid balance.
Correct.
And so if we were going to do some sort of payment plan for privilege fees, you'd want to make sure that you have the ability to do the same thing. Because again, then you find yourself in a situation of someone who's connected and just decides to stop paying. So, so I can certainly look into that, whether you have the legal authority to do it. And then if you do, and you want to do it, I would suggest that, it go along with the recording of a lien to make sure that you actually get paid.
Is that part of the documents today, if you were to do it, because it seems like it comes from the assessor's office in some way, and then into the town treasurer's office. Because when we go in to see if there's a betterment, you get a municipal lien certificate. It's going to say whether or not, they would say sewer betterment on it with a balance. And generally speaking, banks want to clean that up when they're taking and giving a new mortgage to people. So oftentimes the betterment is paid before the end of the term of the original term. So
that's right. And so, like I said, that's by statute. I'm not aware of a similar statutory provision for privilege fees. But, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying I'm not aware of it at this point. I'd want to look into it a little bit further. I also know that there is a local acceptance statute that allows you to put user fees on the tax bill and collect that as a lien. And I don't know if that's something that you do now.
they do.
Okay.
So if you're past due with your sewer or water, that goes right on. And when the bank gets that and looks at that increase, if they give you a call and tell you to run over with some more money here.
Yeah. So we can certainly look into whether that's a possibility. But in the meantime, the connection fee serves a different purpose than the privilege fee. And I would suggest that you put them both in that application document so that people know up front going in, just in case they're not looking at both of those documents. Okay, in addition to the connection fee, I also have to pay this privilege fee.
Yes, I agree with that. And I think that probably shakes up a lot of people when they're going through the permit process to find out, what is this $37,000 for?
I mean, I was able to look back. It looks like Brian Baldwin actually originated that policy, and it looks like that statement was in the original. So I didn't have it as an edit or a Word doc until 2017.
You're talking about the deed restriction.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's probably in the original document that Brian had prepared.
Okay. Well, it's probably something that was never executed based on what we see around town. So that's fine.
Okay. Anything else that we want to discuss? Is there anybody in the audience outside of us that has any questions or anything?
No,
Okay, so
I make a motion to adjourn.
Paul Kier, second.
Wayne Sawchuk approved. That's all.
All right. Hey, Greg, thanks so much for your input.
Thank
It's
you.
great meeting you virtually, and look forward to several more meetings together.
Yeah. I look forward to working with you. It was nice to meet you as
Great.
well.
Thank
Try
you.
to,
we hope not.
yeah, right.
Are you
That
gonna
would be
I
easy.
know.
That's too easy.
get a chance to? Are you gonna visit in person in town, or?
I hope so. I live in Hanover. So,
Okay.
it's not going to be too hard for me to get there
Okay.
in person if you need me.
Oh, good.
Perfect.
Yeah. So yeah, when the sun shines, we'll have you come down.
Yeah. I'm not going out there now. That's for sure.
I know. All right, great.
All right, have
Thanks
a good
very
day,
much.
everyone.
Bye, guys.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.